What's up guys, Mel here back in the studio, and today I have another remake for you. This is the much anticipated Spellbound by Dirty Palm and Bad Reputation. Let's jump right into it. Alright, so I'm sure all you guys know by now what this track is. It's been an ID that's been very anticipated for quite a long time. Martin Garrix has been playing it in a lot of his sets as a mashup, and yeah, it's just a super sick song. It's an insane melody. So the song came out, and of course I had to remake it. So let's jump into the sound design. I'll explain how I did everything, and there's a couple little interesting things that I can show you. Alright, so first let's talk about the lead. I would say it's more of like a Bad Reputation lead. It's not quite so like Dirty Palmy, it's kind of like that almost square sound. And what it really is just a bunch of like super distorted saws. So this right here is the first lead, and this is actually a lead that I recreated. It's pretty much like the lead that Mester used in his Don't Worry. So that's the main sound. Then to support it and to really widen out that sound, I actually have a preset from my Better When You're Gone remake. Again, it's distorted, so it has that same sort of squarey, distorted characteristic. This third lead here is just an octave, just to give a little bit of that upper frequency. I'm actually going to skip over this one just for a second. This one right here is actually just a sample that I bounced out from a preset, and it's just like a whistle sound. Just sort of that like stereotypical future bounce whistle. And the reason I skipped over this one is this is actually a sound that I literally just added like 10 minutes ago. I was listening to the lead, listening to the original track, and it just sort of had this characteristic of this weird sound. I'll play it for you. It sounds like this. So I just went through some of the wavetables in Serum, found something that sounded like I liked, and it sounds a bit weird on its own, but when you layer it up with the rest of that sound, it just adds that last little bit of characteristic that I wanted. Now to make this lead really punch, I have a couple of automation clips. This first one is a pitch bend. It's super slight. It really is not doing a ton, but I just did that to add a bit of extra characteristic. The second one here is a reverb automation. So with a lot of future bounce tracks, especially Dirty Palm, Bad Reputation, and artists like that, one of the very key points for the lead is they have like very specific reverb automations where it's going and then it cuts off and it's going and cuts off. You can hear it in a lot of their tracks. So here's it with the reverb off. It's going to sound really weird. It just sounds really small, and the sound doesn't ring out if I turn it back on. And then the last automation clip that I did that really is important for making this lead hit really hard is this volume automation clip. So again, if I turn this off, it's just going to sound super weird. Especially these notes here in the middle, they just sound super sloppy. They kind of run into each other. And this way, if I have a volume automation clip, I can just control it exactly how I need. So next we have the chords. The chords are fairly straightforward. I think I have 4 layers playing here. This is the first one. Another preset from Better When You're Gone. This one's actually interesting. It says Better When You're Gone. I actually took the Better When You're Gone preset, duplicated it, and then pretty much left the preset as is, except for I switched this wavetable out to be a square, so it just gives it that more sort of squarey sound. This is the third one. Another preset from Better When You're Gone. And yeah, another one. So pretty much I just used all the presets from a previous remake, and yeah, they work for the track. The only other thing that's special about these chords is, again, like I had the automation clip for the leads, I have a volume automation clip for the chords as well. You can really hear it in this section if I turn it off, and if I turn it on, it just really chops it up and again makes it that super like stuttery effect that we need. So the basses for this are actually pretty interesting. I actually have 3 different layers. This is the first layer, it's sort of the mid bass. I layered up a lot of different presets from my sound bank, kind of a lot of Brooksy, aggressive, growly type stuff, just to give it, like this one is. And so that gives it sort of the main characteristic of the bass, gives it some texture, fills out some of the frequencies. Then here is a bass that you can hear in the original track, and it's actually a totally separate bass. It's just like this really fat, kind of punchy sine wave thing that I made in Serum. It sounds like this. What I did to make this is essentially I have 2 sine waves. It's more or less a sine wave. It's kind of like a messed up sine wave. And then on this one, it's a sine wave, but I have this bend plus minus, altering it a little bit, so it gives it a bit of extra punch. And then what I did is I put it on a cutoff filter, so it takes all the high end off, even though there's not much high end to begin with in a sine wave. And then I distorted the shit out of it with a little bit of a filter, so it gives it that super fat, punchy sound. The only other thing for this bass is obviously the sub. It's nothing too complicated, but I did make this sub from scratch just to kind of follow along with the rest of the basses. You can see it's not fully sustained here, and it also has a bit of cutoff and pitch. So again, it's just kind of following that same like really punchy, plucky sort of feeling for the basses. Now, the only other thing I have for instruments is just this little tiny fill in the middle of the drop. First, I have this, which is just pretty much reverb that I bounced out from the lead, and then put a little, it's like LFO automation on it. And then to accompany that, I have these chords, which are also on an LFO automation. And then they also have like this kind of sweep that comes down. I did like a, well, I'll show you in a second, but first take a listen. Pretty much on these chords, I have an EQ just chopping out the low end. And then this is the EQ that's really making that like weird sweep. First, I have this low cut that's sweeping down. And then to accompany that, I also have, it's not quite a band pass, but this little resonant frequency. And together those sweep down. If I turn off this EQ, it's going to sound quite different. Just really static, and then turn it back on, and it just sweeps down. So yeah, that's the fill in the middle, and now we're on to drums. For the drums, they're actually super straightforward and pretty simple. Pretty much a kick and clap, and then a couple like just little rhythmic things. This kick and clap, as you can see, they're actually called dirty palm kick and dirty palm clap. I'm not actually sure if they're like original samples from somehow someone got a hold of them or what. Maybe someone sampled them. But anyway, they're called dirty palm. They sounded like the original track, so of course I used them. And then the only other thing that's going on is I have this cymbal, which is on an automation clip. It just pretty much follows the rhythm of the track. And then same thing down here, I have some white noise that's also following, kind of chopped up with the rhythm. And then in the second half, we have some rides and some shakers and offbeat hi-hats and just a couple little percussion things. So there we have it, guys. That is a full run through of this track. As always, if you guys are interested in downloading this and learning from how I produce this track and downloading all the presets that I've created and all that stuff, the FLP will be available down in the description below. If I missed anything in the video, please drop me a comment down below in the comment section. And again, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys learned something. I'll catch you back in the next video. Peace. Spellbound.